Hey everyone, my name is Dan.
I'm Matt.
I'm Diana.
And we're here at the Chaldean Community Foundation with a very special post focusing on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And we're going to have a dialogue over service, focusing on a very important quote that he shared with everyone.
So the quote from Martin Luther King is, "Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others?"
And we're going to start off that question with kind of a little bit of roundtable discussion with us three here. All of us are friends here. We're open to having some dialogue about our experiences focusing on that question. So, first question that comes to mind is, can you describe a time that somebody helped you and how did that impact you?
So growing up in my house, I grew up with a lot of people that praised me and told me I was the greatest and all this stuff. And going through the school system, I didn't realize that not everybody thought that way. I was very naive to how others treated others. And as a result of that, I was born with a gray tooth. Actually, it was my very front tooth that I had. And as a result of all that, everybody was like, why does this kid have a gray tooth? And they felt the need to pick on me and bully me. And as a result of that, my teachers started to notice that I was shielding away from kids. They didn't want to be a part of the group. And because of that experience, she eventually went and took action, brought it up to the administration without, really having a talk with me, just because she knew the actual situation and everything. And it was really cool because she involved my mom in the process without even really letting me know as well, just so she was transparent and aware and saying that, as a teacher, you always want them to be your biggest advocates, and she was for me in that situation. And it really inspired me and also helped me to realize that being an advocate for somebody else is just as important as treating others well.
That was beautiful, man. Thank you for sharing that. What do you think?
During my college years, I remember being helped by someone who was a coworker of mine, and it was just very interesting to see how thoughtful people were. Sometimes, growing up, you find that you kind of go through life experiencing different things, and you tend to have like this outlook on life that is not necessarily optimistic, because at that young age you don't necessarily, you go through the struggles, but you haven't necessarily overcome them. So in the midst of that time, I was working full-time at a elementary school, and I was actually studying to become a teacher as well. So I was going to school full-time in the evenings, and the job that I was I apologize, the school that I was working at the time, I was just like a teacher's assistant and a paraprofessional, and for some reason the payroll department was behind on paying some of the employees, and I had not been paid for about a month. Wow. And I was living paycheck to paycheck, in college, broke college student. And so one of the teachers, who was very, very kind, he would spend all of his earnings on his students. He just was very selfless in that way. He, just came up to me one day during lunch, and he asked about how I was doing and if I was ready for school and excited about the new semester. And I was like, no, not really, because I haven't gotten paid in about a month, and I don't have money for college books, like my textbooks, and I don't know how I'm going to pay for them. And I was very stubborn growing up, and in those college years, I refused to ask my family for help financially. I refused to get any handouts offered, and he was my coworker, but essentially a stranger to me. And he reached into his pocket and pulled out money to pay for my college textbooks, and I was like overcome. I was like, oh my goodness, he did not have to do that. And I'm very bad. I'm a giver, but I'm not a good receiver. So when someone offers, anything to me in that capacity, it's very overwhelming for me to graciously accept it.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
so just that generosity was like, oh my goodness. And he brought me to tears, and of course I didn't accept it, the money, but just his kind act really, I will never forget it. That was almost 10 years ago now. But just him doing that for me definitely is a constant reminder to keep paying it forward and to always remember where you came from and not forget, right? That someone else might go through those same things that you did at one point. So yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Segovia
Yeah.
Oh, hey.
and Segovia.
That's gonna be the shout out for him.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Great guy.
Amazing.
Mhm.
That was beautiful, and especially the emotional, that feeling of wow, someone really cared and saw the struggle and really
Yeah.
wanted to help in that
Yeah.
moment.
And he didn't have to, and that's something that's very, it reminds me of Martin Luther King too. He didn't have to do what he did. He didn't have to fight for people that he didn't know, but he did it.
He did it, and
And-
your story was beautiful, talking
Yeah.
about your teacher who helped you.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I think the most impactful in recent I can recall was so my family in the Philippines got hit by Typhoon Rai.
Oh.
A lot of places in the Philippines kind of got completely destroyed. A lot of really historical places got damaged and such. And then my family reached out and it was our boat actually got damaged, and it was totally destroyed. And that's one of the big main sources of income.
Oh.
So what happened is we're okay, we want to help this family somehow. Where can we get some income coming in there? So we ran a fundraiser. So this is kind of directly with me, but more so with the whole family. So we put that up on there, and we set a goal for about $800 or so. Because when you translate that into pesos, that's roughly about 30,000 pesos or so, roughly. And that would help with the damage of the roofs. It would help with the boat, all that kind of stuff. And then the community came together and donated over $900 something, past the
Wow.
amount that we were actually anticipating.
It's amazing.
So for me, that definitely was very impactful, seeing the communities coming together. And then even if you can't physically necessarily help, it goes back again with sharing your resources with other people.
Mm-hmm.
We're in a place where we know we have some level of money that we can help with someone, even if it's a very little amount.
Yeah.
So that really touched me personally, seeing that kind of help more so with my family, but seeing how much people really cared from everywhere. We got donations from some friends in other states and countries, just kind of putting their money into this fundraiser.
It's really amazing, and I think it's important to bring up the fact that community is such an important part of this. Community, being able to be around each other and use each other's resources to help the better and common good, I think is something that it can get lost sometimes, and it's always nice to get a reminder to know that others are there and they're there to help you. Sometimes you either have to go out and seek it, or life will surprise you in some insane way, and you'll be grateful for it.
So with that being said, that kind of moves to our second question. So now we got impacted from an outside source, outside communities helping us. Now, is there a memory that you can recall when you helped somebody else and impacted them, and how did that make you feel? And would you like to start this one?
Yeah. So I've always loved teaching. I loved working with the special needs population, so I became a special ed teacher. But during that process of going into teaching and going through schooling, I also spent a lot of my free time volunteering, and so I had a love for volunteering and nonprofit work as well. So for me, something that I really never wanted to let go of was, volunteering on weekends and to help, the underserved or homeless communities in the Southwest Detroit area. So something that I'm a part of there is a nonprofit organization called PB&J Outreach. So we help provide clothing and food for the residents there every Saturday. So we never miss the Saturday in over 20 years now. So I haven't volunteered for that long, but
That's amazing.
but I've been assisting with this organization for I think a little over 4 years now, and it's been such a gift to my life. So something that we got really excited about was like every year they have an annual Christmas party / posada. So they put on a nativity play and the kids are all participating. The catechism and communion kids from the local Catholic school there. And we had about a little over 400 children who were going to take part in this play / event for Christmas. And the nonprofit board members at the time were like seeking out help in raising enough funds or gifts for all of these children. So we had to come up with over 400 gifts within a month.
Wow, that's
And I was like, and they had to be
wow.
brand new, like wrapped, everything. And we were like freaking out. And so, but we, you know, took the challenge on and we reached out to the community. And obviously, like, you know, working in the service profession, whether you're a teacher or whether you're in the nonprofit world, you know, that type of work does not come with a huge paycheck, unfortunately. But the wonderful thing is that you do build networks and connections with people from all over who are so willing to help, who are so generous. And so in my capacity, I knew I couldn't donate monetarily, but I knew many people who were able to assist. So I reached out to my friends and my family and people that I knew on social media, and I just let them know, hey, you know, like, we need to raise this many gifts. Who's gonna help us? You know, who can make it happen with us?
Yeah.
And so that's a very big, like, I'm very persistent. Like, I view it as such a challenge that I need to take on and like accept. And we were able to raise like that many gifts, and we have been doing so. So my friend and I have been responsible for coming up with over 400 gifts for the last 4 years. So because we had such great success the first year, and every year after that, it's been, you know, very overwhelming. You know, like, I'm planning a wedding myself, but you know, I still had to take the, like, I couldn't say no this year. And the kids were amazing, because it was something that really really impacted me when I would see their Christmas list, because we would ask them to give us their list, and the things they would ask for were unbelievable. Like, some kids would ask, you know, typical kids nowadays are asking for like a PS5 or like
Yeah.
Jordans or whatever, like something crazy expensive, but these kids were asking for like a pair of socks or new underwear, and like just something so humbling. When you would read the list, I was like, okay, we have to do something. These kids like really, you know, would benefit from a nice Christmas. So we made it happen, and we continue to make it happen. So I'm really proud of that work. So
That's incredible. 400 was the goal?
this year was 435.
Insane.
Wow.
But it changes every year. So we get
Yeah.
the list ahead of time. We get the amount of children and like the age ranges, and we make it work. You know.
So that's
Unbelievable.
amazing.
Yeah. So.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, thank
that was
you.
Powerful.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
your service.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for your service.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do. I really love it. Yeah. What about you guys?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, so based on what I was talking about earlier with the bullying experience I experienced, fast forward a few years later, I'm in 5th grade, and there's a classmate of mine, his name's Josh, and I'll never forget, he unfortunately battled a lot of weight issues growing up, and there was a lot of people that felt the need to just always talk about his weight, always talk about how he was so different than everybody else, and that he didn't belong, and that he never really felt a part of something. And he openly told me that, actually, as well, because I was somebody who always talked to him and always tried to give him any sort of source of a friend that I could, because we had some common interests. We weren't totally like in the same friend groups and things like that, but I always made sure to respect him based on how I was treated as a kid. And my fifth grade teacher, ironically enough, as well, another advocate, came in and had a one-on-one conversation with me and said, Matt, I know that you have the maturity in order to help him out, but be a guardian for him, help him out, allow him to ingratiate himself more into his classmates and the community as well, and just be a leader for him. And I willingly took on that challenge because I knew that having an advocate was so important, and having that person in your corner that allows you to feel represented or part of something is so vital to not only your development as a person, but also your development in terms of how you grow. And through that, I was able to, help him out through class and stuff like that, and do various different things. And he ended up moving the next year to a different school district, but it was interesting to see that throughout the year, his confidence just grew, knowing that he had somebody that was there that could help him each and every day. And in that, I learned the value of helping others and being able to be of service to somebody else. And I think it's one of life's greatest gifts that you're able to, not only think of yourself, obviously, but allow yourself to be a part of the impact for somebody else. And it's a big driver for why I'm in the nonprofit sector in the first place. I think it's such an important thing, and there's so much intrinsic value in being able to help another person overcome a certain circumstance, or allow them to just have the opportunities that we've been blessed and lucky enough to be able to have. And it's really touching, and I come home every day and I love the fact that I'm able to help others. I'm promoting things that allow for people to not only come here and work, and come to the CCF and get the resources that they need, but they're also able to feel empowered and feel part of, general community as well. And it's honestly, it's something that I've always valued based on my life's experiences and things like that. And it's really kind of shaped who I am as a person at the end of the day. So becoming an advocate and becoming a leader for somebody else, I don't think there's a greater thing you can do in this world than try and help somebody else to, not only feel better about themselves, but also feel a part of something. And that was huge for me.
Those are really powerful stories. Seriously, thank you. I'm starting to get emotional. Yo.
How about you?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think of one that I'm not gonna just start busting into tears, because there's something that really stuck out when you're talking about that belongingness.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it feels that humanity just wants to belong.
Mm-hmm.
They want to belong to something, and it reminds me of a quote I heard once, where even in a crowded room, you can still feel lonely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there was something about that really touched me, what you said about how it's like you made them feel welcome, you made them feel belonged, and that inspired them. So I started thinking to myself, something that inspired me in the past where I helped somebody. And what came to first mind was, so in the nonprofit world, funny enough, we're talking about nonprofit world. So there's 3 orgs that I simultaneously help out with, usually on the weekends. One is called the Council of Asian Pacific Americans, or CAPA. Then there's API Vote Michigan, stands for Asian Pacific Island American Vote. Mm-hmm. And then the other one, which is the one I'm probably going to focus on, is it's called Parang Filipino. And it's at the Filipino American Community Center in Southfield. And I'm one of the volunteer instructors there with my partner, and we teach traditional Kulintang music, which is from the Philippines, pre-colonial.
Yeah.
And the kids who come in there, they get so inspired because they get to play the drums and they get to play our traditional instruments, like our gongs and things like that. And there are some kids who have such incredible gifts, and you can see the look on their faces when they're playing this, that they're just they're getting in touch with something that is been historically almost wiped from our history.
Yeah.
So seeing it thriving and being taken on by these new generations, and seeing them not only just taken on because they feel that driven, but they also have a pride behind it, whether they're Filipino or even non-Filipino.
Yeah.
That's really touching, because it's like you're playing these instruments through your ancestors. It's the idea of this culture was nearly wiped out because of our colonial history with Spain. But it survived for so long, and now we're teaching the next ones, and it's just going to keep thriving. So seeing me and my partner helping these kids learn these instruments, teaching them the proper way to play this, and then seeing them incorporating the dances and do these and show these other people, it's showing our culture still exists.
Yeah.
It's still alive.
It's revitalizing.
Yeah. And you've been thriving.
Awesome.
It really thrives.
Yeah.
So kind of broadening this up on our last question. So again, thank you both for taking the time out
Thank
today and
you.
sharing
Absolutely.
this. This was a little more emotional than I anticipated. So
It's okay.
what are you anticipating for 2022 in regards to helping the greater community?
So I think for me, for this year, my biggest goal is to work on advocating for my clients, for the people that I serve in the community, more specifically with our special needs population. Something that I really am looking forward to for them is to grow in independence and autonomy. You know, as much as we love our families and our friends, there are times where, you know, some of that love or wanting to protect your children can hinder them from growing, right? And so for me specifically is to like really give them that space that they can share their gifts, that sometimes you know is shut down, you know, and so or not encouraged. And so I just want to be that for them, and to also open up more room for more programming and to kind of like revitalize. I know it was very, very hard with COVID and the restrictions that are placed, of course, and we definitely do want to be safe and keep the community safe, but just, you know, kind of brainstorm more creative ways to service our population, especially in the special needs community, having them have access to more services and to get creative with the way that we present that information for them, and to just gain more independence, like seeing them out in the community one day, maybe having a job, you know, and teaching them, right, so teaching them those things, yeah.
Beautiful.
So that's the ultimate goal this year.
For our final question that we have, before we get to that, thank you so much to both of you for taking the time out today to share these perspectives and these experiences,
Absolutely.
both reflecting on from someone else helping you, and then in return, you helping others. So the last question that comes to mind is, what do you foresee in 2022 regarding helping people?
So for me, my main focus, specifically with my area of work, I work for the Breaking Barriers Behavioral Health Department. So I am the curriculum coordinator for our special needs clientele here at the Chaldean Community Foundation. So for me, really is you know, focusing on trying to meet the needs of our adult special needs population, and even our younger clients as well. But we really want to focus on transitional autonomy, focusing on, you know, gaining independence at home or in the community, giving them more exposure and just allowing them to be themselves, having that safe space for them to just really feel like they are loved, they are appreciated, they are valued, and they are listened to and cared for. So that's something that I really want to hone in on this year, as well as increasing program opportunities for them. So right now we have programming a few days out of the week, but we really want to focus on making it a five day a week opportunity for them, so that way every single day there is something for them.
Thank you so much, Diana. That was absolutely beautiful.
You're welcome.
It was a very, very beautiful way to look at the world and with that optimism for 2022.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
I admire that.
We're working on it.
Working on it
Yeah,
a little bit.
one day at a time.
One day at a
That's all you
time.
can do.
Matt, so what do you look forward to for 2022 in the hopes of helping others?
I think the last couple of years we've had a lot of division within society, and you know, even our friend groups, our families. You know, people having different beliefs on things, but not really understanding the other side. And to me, I think if we can just work on being less divisive and more inclusive with everybody, and coming together and having an understanding that we're not all going to have the same opinions, the same thoughts and feelings on certain things. But at the end of the day, they're the core of who you are. You know, they've helped you to become the person that you are. and you're influenced by those that are around you. And I think there's certainly some level of, not necessarily criticism that you can bestow on these people, but I think there's a certain level of understanding that you have to have as to why they feel the way they do. And, you know, whether that's through previous history or, you know, various other things in, you know, whatever they go through in life, I think the biggest thing that you can do is try and have an understanding of that situation and of that person's lifestyle and story. Because we all have unique stories, we all have unique challenges, and we all have circumstances that shape and think the way we feel about certain things in life. And being able to come together and come to a consensus in terms of, you know, just accepting people's beliefs and thoughts is a major thing. And I think it's a step in maturity, but it's also a step in understanding that, you know, you can't change the world overnight. Things happen, and all you can do is try and help yourself become the best person that you want to be and reach your own personal goals. And I think there's a lot that we can do to help others reach their own goals as well. You can't think all of the time about yourself. And we're increasingly getting that way through social media, through, you know, our own influences on ourselves. I think the biggest thing we can do is come together, understand people's viewpoints, and help to build a better community, not only for ourselves, but the people around us. Be an advocate, be there for somebody, but also allow yourself to know that, you know, what you feel is valid, your thoughts are valid, your feelings are valid, and that's what matters most.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Very
And I really,
inspirational.
it is very inspirational. And you hit something on the very end of that really like touched me personally, where from what it sounded like, it's like knowing your own limits. Knowing where it's like you want to help other people, but like you said, you can't change the world overnight. It takes an entire community of people to make these kind of changes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So even down to yourself, there's a very big difference between self-love and self-pride. Self-pride is like the acknowledgement of the lesser, like, oh, I am so much far superior to this, I don't want to help these people because of whatever. But self-love is also saying, you know, I'm going to do everything that I can, but I'm going to start asking for help.
Yeah.
I'm going to start reaching out and being like, look, I'm overwhelmed, I'm mentally drained, I need that extra help, and that's where that whole help comes into play. And that's kind of what my hope for 2022 really boils down to, because you kind of like hit it on that one, where it's that idea of communities coming together and listening to our stories and understanding, and this is a bit of an analogy that I love to live by, and I always say this all the time, so I get super excited over this. So, if I gave a book to you, a novel you'd never heard of before, and I asked you to open up in the middle and say, read 3 sentences, could you honestly summarize that whole book for me?
No.
No.
No, not at all.
And why?
Because there's a whole story to it. There's a whole lot of circumstances that lead to that point in the novel, and you have to understand those before you get to understand the whole novel.
Nailed it. You have to understand that every chapter, from chapter 1 to the chapter that I ask you to read, they all influence each other. Every word, every sentence matters. And until we can understand that and really share and be open with that dialogue, like you said, sharing our experiences, the world isn't black and white. The world is spectrums, complexities, and that's what people really are. And until we can acknowledge that past and look at what we're at right now in the middle of our novel, we don't have much of a future. We're going to keep cycling back to these same issues over and over and over and over. And it was described to me kind of like a slinky, where it's like there are multiple small circles, they are progressing forward, but they're always going backwards too. The same issues always arise, so it's slowly moving forward. But until we understand that every letter, every sentence, and every part of that book matters, we can't sit in the middle and be like, well, there wasn't anything before that.
Yeah.
Because we are born into a world of history.
Yeah.
So for me, what my hope is, exactly piggybacking off of what you said and like what you said, is helping others and having them thrive, giving them those resources, listening to their stories. In Filipino culture, we have a saying called bayanihan. Bayanihan is both a terminology to describe helping other people without expecting anything in return. And it's also a festival. Traditionally, homes were made out of bamboo. And if they needed to be moved to a higher ground, the entire community comes out and literally lifts this house on their backs and will move it across the country.
Wow.
So that's where the term bayanihan comes from. It's helping others without expecting anything in return. It's a very significant part of our culture. And that's what my hope is for 2022, is to see these communities listening to each other stronger and harder than we speak, acknowledging our experiences, knowing our own limits, and then, like you said, providing those resources to help others to thrive, especially for those who have historically not been able to have those resources. So, yeah. So with that being said, we wanted to thank all of you for tuning in for this conversation, and let us know as well. What do you hope for 2022, and where have you been impacted with being helped either from somebody else or you helping them? Share your stories. Talk to us. Comment down below.
We would love to engage with you. We are so excited about being able to put on this production and this conversation. It's something that we've had a discussion on here for a long time, and it's just so important that we have our community in the social media world helping us to help create that dialogue, and not only create it but continue that dialogue as well. So we would love to hear your stories. We'll engage in the comments, and we'd love to share these stories, because I think they're so important in terms of what we do here as a social services organization, but also for you to feel heard and said and understood. So with that being said, please like, comment, subscribe, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook if you don't already. And thank you so much for joining our conversation. Really appreciate your time.
We appreciate you all. And if you want to learn more about the Chaldean Community Foundation, you can call us at 586-722-7253. And we'll be signing off.